Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Law of the Jungle by Michael Anderle, narrated by Megan Tusing. Prologue. The temperature was unnaturally high, elevated by several kilns and furnaces located around the room. Steam and smoke created a carpet on the ceiling. A constant crackle popped in the air as the golden glow from molten metal channeled along preset paths. Sasha Chechik folded her arms. Her dark skin glistened with pearls of sweat. She wore leather overalls, her hands hidden by oversized gloves. Nearby, the mountain of a man, Carlos Aria, played with his toys, encouraging the molten metal along the track and into the mold.
Doesn't look like much now, but soon this'll be one of the finest blades Atlantica has to offer.
He grinned, a hypnotized stare on his face, the golden liquid reflected in the darks of his eyes.
I can't tell you how much something like this will fetch on the market.
Does it matter? Sasha replied sharply, only a little impressed by the molding. What use are swords in today's world? You bring a sword to the house of your enemies, and you won't get an inch inside before they riddle your body with bullets. There's no place for swords or cutlasses when people wage war long range now. Carlos gave her a dirty look. He was large enough to crush her with a bearish squeeze, but Sasha sensed no threat from the smith. He rocked the bed where the molten metal was cooling, ensuring that the liquid moved into all the correct cracks and holes before stepping away. He took a cloth from his waist and wiped his forehead.
Then what the fuck are you doing here, if not to purchase from my array of world-class, close-range weaponry?
Sasha's eyes lingered on the mesmerizing bed of gold. You know why I'm here. Carlos glanced at the shadowy space near the wooden door, where a set of 4 stone steps led to the only entrance in or out of his workshop. Resting against the wall was an ancient scythe, the handle black as obsidian, the blade a dull silver.
A tune-up?
He wandered over to the scythe, then examined it. He rolled the handle over in his hands, then scrutinized the blade, running a thumb along the edge.
How long since your last sharpening?
Sasha peeled her eyes from the metal, the golden gleam beginning to fade as the metal cooled. Since its last owner handed it to me. Carlos chuckled.
That much is clear. Why now?
Sasha stalked closer, leaving a trailing scent of lilies mixed among the burning stench. Carlos retreated slightly, sensing the power she held. Because my father saw the blade only as a symbolic item, a lingering relic of a time long past. It was never used to strike, attack, or mow down an enemy, only to make his dick look bigger in the rooms where they measured them. But now, an intensity crossed over Sasha's face that drew Carlos's unblinking gaze. Now I intend to restore this to its former glory. Carlos exhaled, turning his attention back to the dull blade.
So much for the woman mocking the man still making swords in a world of long-range combat.
Sasha smirked. Indeed. Only if an enemy comes into my domain, they will be stripped of their firearms and will face me fist to fist. Carlos gave a firm nod.
Then I'd better get to work. No point letting a lady of your caliber wait longer than is necessary.
He shuffled past her, attending to stoking the fires of a nearby furnace. On a shelf by the wall were several stones and items used to sharpen and keen and hone.
How much are you looking to pay for this service?
Carlos asked. Finance is not an issue. Whatever you deem worthy, Sasha replied. Carlos nodded.
Friends and family discount it is.
Sasha wandered close behind him. She could barely see the fires past his broad shoulders. His black shirt was stained even darker with sweat. You understand that's not the only reason for my visit, don't you? Carlos stiffened. She knew she had him where she wanted him.
Oh,
Carlos replied. He stood straight, then turned to face her, having to look down to meet her eyes. Sasha looked up. She knew the effect she had on men. her angular face and sharp jawline an attraction to the male gaze. Her eyes were the steely blue of an iceberg. "You know where it is, don't you?" Carlos narrowed his eyes. "I'm sorry, you're going to have to be clearer." He stopped, a great waft of air expelling from his lips. He glanced down at the blade stuck in his hip. He doubled over, clutching his side. Now at eye level with Sasha, she drew closer, eyes inches from his, her demeanor still calm. "Don't toy with me, Smith. You know why I've come, and I know you know where it is." She twisted the blade a fraction to the left. Carlos grunted. "Now, either you tell me what you know, or I find one of your friends who will. One option leaves you with a small boo-boo on your side. The other leaves you melting face down in your creations. Choose wisely." Carlos groaned, squinting as sweat dripped into his eyes. Sasha held his gaze, awaiting the answer, the one she knew she would get. "Say its name," Carlos replied weakly. Sasha's lips peeled back into a menacing grimace. "La daga de los días sin fin." Carlos gave a resigned sigh, his body jerking slightly at the pain of the blade. Sasha kept her hold firm. "The Temple of the Summer Crown," Carlos replied at last. "A wanderer stumbled across it a few days ago. Almost lost his leg on a tumble down through the forest floor." He gasped for breath. "A rescue team brought him out. They'd never seen anything like it. Alerted the authorities. They're sending their teams down there now, if they haven't already got there." "Who's down there?" She twisted the blade again. It was unnecessary, but brought her a certain joy to see the mammoth squirm. "The Atlantican Historical Preservation Society." Carlos' breaths were shaky. Sasha gave a steely nod. "Anyone else?" "Not that I'm aware of." She detected a hint of a lie in his eyes and twisted the knife again. "Fine," Carlos groaned. "Fine. The Albatross." Sasha's heart dropped. In one fluid motion, she pulled the blade from Carlos's hip. "Thank you. You have proven most useful." She turned and crossed the room. When she reached the door, she heard a thump as Carlos fell to his knees. He called, "Wait, your scythe." Sasha narrowed her eyes. "My price will be fair. Have it fixed up for me by the end of tomorrow. I'll have one of my people collect it." Carlos glanced down at his side. Blood trickled between the cracks of his fingers. His lips parted, protestations ready on his tongue. Before he had a chance to reply, Sasha was gone. Chapter 1. "So, are you going to tell me what's new with you?" Santana asked Terracris, the athletic woman who sat across the table. "Got a new fella in your life?" Music played at a steady level, quieter than some of the other joints in this city. The club was sparsely populated, and of those patrons scattered around the place, a large number of the hot-blooded males kept their eyes fixed on Santana Sokolov. Who could blame them? It wasn't often that they'd find a woman dressed as though she were ready for her next expedition into the tropics in a place like this. Santana's cargo shorts revealed long, muscular legs. Her tank top hugged her form. The long coil of a bullwhip hung at one hip. Tara scoffed. "You could say that." Santana's eyebrows raised. She studied the woman she'd known since they were both children. Santana, a young girl who had migrated to Atlantica from Russia in her formative years, found this woman fascinating. Tara was born and bred on the island of Atlantica, had never seen the outside world, or knew of the ways of distant continents. Santana had seen plenty through her travels, and knew that nowhere was supposed to be like Atlantica. Atlantica was a cesspool of wonder, crime, fortune, fame, and destruction. Even in the grand old year of 2027, injustice was allowed to reign supreme. A modern metropolis in which the corrupt ruled the roost, and the authorities constantly swam upstream. Tara was Atlantica justice system talent through and through. Everything and anything she'd done in her life had paved the way forward for a career in law enforcement. So why the change in relationship status now?
Well, I wasn't expecting that, Santana stated.
Tara Chris, the perpetually single, taking another into her life. What's his name?
April, Tara replied. There was a strange glint in Tara's eyes.
April,
she mused, a sudden realization dawning on her.
Oh, are you...
No, Tara interjected, a laugh playing on her lips. Nothing like that. Well, this is going to sound a little crazy. Santana sipped her drink and crossed her legs.
I love crazy.
Tara sighed and leaned forward. April. It stands for Advanced Police Relationship Intelligence Liaison. Santana cocked her head.
I'm not following you.
Tara tapped the side of her head. There was a series of puckered pink lines at the edges of her scalp, fading away into her hairline. Santana wondered if they were from Tara's recent accident. They did something to me during my operation, Tara continued. After salvaging what they could from what the blast had taken, they had no choice but to piece me together manually. Santana sipped her drink, her interest engaged. Tara carried on. They had been trialing a new AI system for the AJS, trying to find ways to increase the force's effectiveness. Some donor was on the verge of integrating artificial intelligence with biomatter and... She grinned and spread her arms wide to present herself. The first successful example is sitting before you. Santana's brow creased. She couldn't find the words. I told you it was crazy, Tara offered. She looked strange out of uniform. Santana tried to remember the last time she'd seen the officer out of her hexagonal-patterned blue fatigues that were standard among the Atlantica justice system. Santana had begun to think that Tara lived, worked, and slept in the damned things. Santana shook her head disbelievingly and waved dismissively.
Shut up.
It's true. Tara's drink was nearly empty, a weight falling over her. Ask me a question about you. Anything.
What's my mother's name?
Santana teased. Tara rolled her eyes. A question you know I wouldn't know the answer to, please. Something you have on record that would be impossible for me to know?
Fine.
Santana thought long and hard.
What's my social security number?
She waited a moment while Tara's eyes narrowed. Something was going on inside her head that Santana wasn't privy to. Santana had seen a lot of examples of advanced tech in the city, but this one seemed to go too far. Finally, Tara replied, 078501120. Santana's eyes widened. Holy shit.
Okay, that's impressive, but could be coincidental.
Coincidental how?
You could have looked at my records on the AJS database before we met up, Santana replied. Who were my last 3 clients to pay fees into my account?
She sat back and folded her arms with a smug grin. There was no way anyone but Santana and her clients would know the answer to this question. She waited another couple of seconds while Tara calculated and conferred with the so-called tech inside her head. Santana grew curious, wondering if Tara was speaking the truth and what that would mean to Atlantica going forward. Taylor Youngheim, Bonita Ung, and Charles Trevors, Tara replied. The mirth left Santana's face, replaced with a deep fascination. She leaned closer to Tara, looking intently into her eyes. She honed in on the sclera, looking toward the pink corneas and wondering if that blinking light she could see behind Tara's eyes was imaginary, or if it was there. The light blinked again. A small LED tucked into the far reaches of Tara's eye socket. Santana gasped.
You weren't kidding.
No, Tara confirmed. Why would I kid about any of that?
I don't know.
Santana sat back.
Sometimes people play pranks.
About AIs sitting inside their minds? I don't think so.
Fascinating,
Santana breathed. She reached for her glass and drained the last of the contents. Sitting across from her old school friend, Trying to digest all that had happened to them in the years since they'd graduated and gone their separate ways was no small feat. Santana thought she and Tara were meeting up for a small catch-up, but this development was huge. This could spell massive disruption in the city. Lucky that I don't spend much of my time in the city these days. At least out in the jungles I remain queen. Finally, she managed. It can do everything you say it can? Everything and more, Tara replied. Even now I'm still finding out things that it can do that I was unaware of. She nodded at Santana's glass. Another? Santana thanked Tara. She returned a moment later with 2 of the same orders. I'm surprised that you didn't go for a coffee again, Santana commented. Go big or go home. Santana rolled her eyes and swallowed her mouth full. Do you remember the guys that used to live by that as their mantra? I wonder what they're doing these days. Mostly rotting in prison cells or drug dens hooked on ink, Tara replied. We caught Philip Vaughn, by the way. Santana nearly spat out her drink. Little Pippin? The very same, Tara replied. Caught him a few months back dealing ink to a bunch of school kids. When we dove in further, there was... Well, let's just say there were more kids where they came from. Damn. Santana's head filled with images of the vagrants who lined Atlantica's alleyways, their veins black and pronounced after injecting themselves with the latest narcotics craze the city had to offer. This city hits their people hard, doesn't it? Tara nodded. What about you, anyway? Any more trips back to the motherland recently? Santana shook her head. Afraid not. It's been a few years since I've been back to see Papa. I have far too much to keep me busy here. She considered saying more, but held it back. Tara knew better than most about the tragic and untimely death of Santana's mother after a rogue cave-in caught her underground and took the lives of her entire expedition team. Her father had never truly been right after that. It barely took him a couple of weeks before announcing to a young Santana that they were migrating back to Russia. Atlantica has a way of swallowing you and holding you here. Tara smirked. Tell me about it. I do miss the mountains, though, Santana continued. Nothing like staring up at the canvas of stars from the top of Mount Elbrus. I can't describe it. It's like the gods birthed all their colors and swirls and slapped it on the black. You don't see that here. Only fog, fog, and more fog. Tara looked down at the table. I'd love to visit one day. You should, Santana replied. If our days off ever cross, I'll take you there. I'll show the best trails to the top. We'll wrestle mountain lions and hug goats and fall from the top, Tara laughed. Just the straighten up, please. You got it. Santana drained her drink in one. You down for another? Santana smirked, seeing the slight glaze over Tara's eyes. She wobbled a touch in her chair. Tara had never been that great at holding her liquor, and Santana knew they always had more fun when the uptight, rigid, scheduled, lawful Tara allowed herself to have some fun. Santana wondered if Tara had enough, and was surprised when she rose from the table and took Santana's glass. I'll get this round. Fine, Santana smiled. I've got next. She watched Tara wander over to the bar, several nearby men shifting in their chairs, and sensing Santana now sitting by herself. Santana caught one man's eyes and shook her head, clarifying that he shouldn't attempt what he was about to. Tara returned with the next round. They both held up their glasses and clinked them together. For one night only, Tara stated. For one night only. Santana closed her eyes and sipped, unaware of how much fun she and her old school friend were about to have. Chapter 2. The clock ticked past midnight, and still the 2 ladies of Atlantica strolled arm in arm down the street. Santana's cheeks hurt from grinning. Tara had hooked her arm around Santana's. She'd lost count of how many drinks they'd both had, and she didn't mind one iota. Tara was having a whale of a time, She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen the justice officer let go and live in the moment. That technology inside her noggin must be doing wonders for her. Santana thought back, trying to track the number of drinks the pair had bought. They'd hit several of Atlantica's quieter clubs and bars, and were now heading away from the place where they'd spent the last hour dancing. Together they had laughed and smiled and guarded each other against the advances of the predatory elite. With each step away from the club, the city grew quieter. Above them, the ever-present veil of fog that blanketed Atlantica obscured the full moon. Set nearly 1,000 miles off the east coast of the United States, Atlantica had been an enigma for years. Although rumors flared around the existence of the isolated island cast adrift in the Atlantic Ocean, few knew of its location. The island maintained its subtropical climate, and sailors throughout the years simply missed the landmass due to the blanket fog cover. It wasn't until the Second World War that the island was first claimed by soldiers from the Nazi Party, using the island as an outpost for research and projects that were still a mystery. Toward the end of the war, U.S. soldiers landed on the island's soil, and in a freak, unexplained event, no one ever saw a soldier from either side again. Years passed with little story to tell. When the world officially launched satellites into the sky and showed the first full images of the Earth, countries were finally able to home in on the modest island. Santana tried to recall the details, wondering where it all went wrong. In the 70s, the island grew in popularity. Arguments between territories broke out as nations tried to stake their claim and guide the island by their own rule. In a twisted fight for its identity, Atlantica finally settled on its rules and regulations. The main two being, shield the corrupt and taint the pure, and whatever happens on private property stays on private property. Santana had witnessed Tara's frustration throughout the years, knowing that as long as criminals hid inside their own four walls, even the AJS couldn't touch them. What a place to live. "Easy now," Santana laughed, saving Tara from stumbling and falling on her face. "We should probably look at getting you home, shouldn't we?" Tara waved it off. She slurred her words with a glazed look in her eye.
"I'm fine. Fine. I could go all night."
Santana chuckled. "Come on, pig. Let's drag you back to that house of yours. Your mama and papa still living there?" A sudden fear passed over Tara's eyes.
Nope, can't go there. They're not there. No."
She hiccuped, a dangerous burp following the sound.
"Come on, one more, please."
Santana rolled her eyes. "Fine. Where's good for you?" Tara let out another hiccup. Her cheeks puffed out. Then she dribbled saliva to the ground. "Charming," Santana stated. Tara turned to her, a pained expression on her face.
"I think I may have had a little too much."
"You think?" Santana replied, bringing her closer and supporting her as she veered Tara in the opposite direction. Tara didn't fight her.
"How come you're okay?"
Tara asked, her neck seeming unable to support the weight of her head. Santana gave a single reply. "Russian." Tara nodded, then fell quiet. Santana led her across the street, heading through the forest of skyscrapers and magnificently eccentric buildings. As they walked, groups of young adults wandered between bars, cheery expressions on their faces, drinks in hand. Santana weaved through them, on one occasion slapping a man's hand away who had tried to squeeze her ass. Finally, the streets quieted. Santana looked ahead, looking for the shortcut to her apartment. Tara had fallen silent, her eyes struggling to stay open as she stumbled. Her weight grew heavier on Santana's shoulder with every step. They approached an alley. It was dark inside, but Santana knew the way even with several drinks in her system. She wasn't lying to Tara. Her Russian heritage and her father's affinity for alcohol, particularly in the days since her mother's passing, had steeled her stomach to much of its effects. Although the edges of her vision were a little fuzzy, she navigated through the alley with ease, curving around dumpsters and bracing herself against the potent stink of the ventilation system behind the fast food venue. If Tara weren't still moving her legs in the darkness, Santana would have believed she was sleeping. Halfway through the alley, she detected the soft sounds of movement. She froze. Over her years of jungle exploration, Santana's eyes had adjusted to the darkness. In the inky shadows, she saw the soft outline of trash cans, a rusted shell of a car, and something moving toward her. Santana straightened up, eyes narrowing. A flame flared on the edge of a thick stick, and a gaunt face flickered into sight.
"Evening, ma'am,"
the man crooned. He looked skeletal in the frugal light. His beard was scraggly and brown. He'd combed his long hair back with only his fingers, leaving thick tracks on his head.
"What's a pretty thing like you doing in a place like this?"
He turned his head toward Tara, his tongue hopping out to play on his lips.
"Heading home,"
Santana stated briefly. The man cocked his head, his eyes now drinking in Santana's legs and the small strip of flesh exposed around her midriff. He scratched his arm, bones pressing against his skin. She spotted the dark lines of his veins.
"Shame,"
he sighed, then motioned behind him.
"If you like, you can spend a little time with my friends and me. I'm certain the fellas would appreciate a pretty thing like you joining us, even for a little while."
Santana's skin crawled. His voice was soft, unthreatening, but she was wise to this city and knew what came next. Movement came from the shadows behind. Santana unwrapped Tara's arm from around her shoulders and guided her to the nearest dumpster. She leaned Tara beside it. Tara slipped slowly, landing on her ass, head flopping to the side. Santana strode nearer to the man, the firelight flickering on her face. His eyes strayed down to the coils of the bullwhip at her hip.
"You can use that with the boys if you like. We ain't adverse to a bit of kink."
3 other men appeared behind the first man, each one with a dark glint in their eyes. Toothless grins and an overwhelming stink of sour alcohol wafted toward her.
"Oh, I plan to," Santana replied.
"Good girl."
The man bit his lip.
"Your friend can join if she likes."
They both glanced toward Tara. She rolled her head back against the dumpster and gave a weak thumbs up. Half a chuckle emerged from between her lips before a wave of vomit followed. She leaned to the side and expelled her insides onto the ground, the stream landing with a dull, wet smack. The man turned back to Santana. Santana grinned and shrugged.
"Guess it's just me."
"I guess so."
He took a step forward, then lashed out toward her, grabbing Santana around her wrist. He closed in on her, his stench stinging her eyes. Santana stepped aside, then tugged her arm away from the man. He kept his grip, but stumbled forward. He landed on the ground with a thud and a moan, the torchlight sputtering in the cracks. Another torch lit, then another. The other 3 men became 5 as more appeared from the shadows. Each of them sported the same dark veins as their comrade, which would work to Santana's advantage. While ink made its users feel a strong wave of euphoria, it slowed their reactions. She could work with that.
"Quick, stop her!"
one of the men shouted, lunging toward her. Santana threw a fist at his cheek, her knuckles and his cheekbone making a dull pop as they connected. She dodged around him, putting some space between herself and the others. They ran at her. Santana kept a watchful eye on each as she reached for her bullwhip. She flicked it, the lash and popper creating a powerful snap. She flicked again, and this time the whip coiled around one of the men's necks. He gasped, hands clutching the tendril around his throat. Santana ran to the right, sweeping past 2 more of the men. The whip pulled taut, creating a clothesline that caught the men's foreheads and dragged them backward. They fell and hit their heads on the ground. Using the momentum from the bullwhip, Santana jumped at the wall, using it to spring toward the 5th man. She kicked out, the sole of her foot catching him in the center of his chest.
He attempted to grab her foot, but was far too slow. When she landed, 2 hands approached from behind, slipping beneath her armpits. They grabbed her chest and squeezed. Santana shuddered.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?